Thank you very much. Great that this works. So I'm very happy to talk about what we are doing in Nokia with Challenger. I'm not in sales, I'm in human resources. So bear with me about that. But there's actually a good reason why we choose to take the human resource dimension into driving Challenger behaviors. Because this is behaviors. This is one thing I'm really interested in is behavior change and how that affects the business. So I'm very happy to share with you our journey so far, and we have a lot of time for questions, answers, hopefully, and all your good comments and your perspectives. But I want to start my presentation by asking you to imagine a future where you are working with your customers and you help them as a trusted business advisor to solve some of the biggest challenges they are facing, like Nokia's customers. And imagine that outcome of that joint work set them apart, not just to be in the game as we heard previously today, but really set them ahead of the game. This is the road we are on in Nokia. This is where we're going, and this is why I'm personally really excited about that, because I want to see that imagination turn into reality. And in my presentation, I will do certain things with my slides. I will talk a little bit about, so what is the challenge our customers are facing? I'll talk to you about how we need to adapt our behaviors as the first and very important steps to Challenger. And I want to talk to you about, so what's our learning so far? Because this is a snowball effect, and you've got to do a lot of things to keep it going. I hope you will enjoy it as much as I will have fun talking to you guys today. But before I move into this, somebody came to me and said, Peter, do you have the banana phone with you? I said, I don't have the banana phone. This one from the Matrix and so on. So we don't do phones anymore. But what do Nokia actually do? What do you think? When you hear the word Nokia, what springs to your mind? Just shout out to me. Networks? Yeah? Telecommunications networks? Oh, thanks. Yeah? Other things? Yes. I mean, Brent would mock me on this. We used to do phones that had numbers. The 6310, I got the 7280. That's cool stuff. We don't do that anymore. So we moved away from that. And actually, there's one thing that Nokia has always been doing through our 150 years of history. We've been always transforming. We used to do phones. You see, it has a little thing at the corner. That's a small bleep on the radar. We also did pulps. We did paper. We did TV sets. We did satellite dishes. If you're from Austria, you can buy Nokian winter tires. We only do the licensing. And if you buy a Nokia phone today, it's only us who do the licensing. Somebody else is doing it. It's great phones, by the way. It's made by HMD. Cool stuff based on the Android platform. But we have actually also constantly transformed by buying and selling companies. So we sold the mobile handset business to Microsoft. And we have been buying one of our biggest competitors at that time, Motorola. And 2 years ago, we bought Alcatel-Lucent, one of our, at that time, biggest competitors. And that turned Nokia into be a company that houses now more than 100,000 employees, in any country in the world, basically. And we turned a little bit north of 22 billion euros of revenue. So Nokia is constantly transforming. And when we look into this side of the slide, you can see we're constantly now buying small specific things in the technology space, small acquisitions. And why are we doing that? Because we are in love with the mega trends that shapes the way our customers think about the world. It shapes what we can do with technology. Here's 6 of them. Obviously, we think it's cool about access to fast internet. In a few years' time, if everything goes well, you will have sometimes double the speed of your fastest internet connection at home now at your handheld device. Imagine what that can do for you, and imagine what kind of behavior change that gives for you when you get that power in your hand. And one of the biggest changes we see for our customers is that in the future, networks will have more things in them than actually real customers. As I was flying into London here, I read in the Financial Times that the prediction of the Internet of Things market is a little bit north of 300 billion euros in 2025. Think about a little slice of that big cake, but think also about the behavior change on the customer side. Now you need to accommodate for things in your network. And we think that augmented reality is cool. You can go and have the IKEA app. You can put furniture in your living room with your phone. But once you connect it and it becomes augmented intelligence, Imagine what our customers can do for their customers when you provide these two worlds and they connect and you start to interchange data a lot. We also think machine and people working together is a cool thing, but what really excites us is about the safety and security about future networks. Because it becomes more vulnerable, it becomes more open. And we are really in a key position to help our customers with that. So it becomes almost an ethical game. Do I trust that supplier? Do I trust that customer who then builds their technology and their vision around the Nokia solution offering? So there's quite a great stuff here. And if I really try to sum it up, is that Nokia is really creating the technology that connects the world. There was no products in that. There's nothing that. This is where we're going in this. But the challenge we have is that our customers' world have changed. So let me give a little bit of a context to where our customers are going, because if you don't understand that, any challenger journey is kind of an internal journey. I see three major shifts from our customers. Our customers typically are mobile operators. It can be BT, it can be EE, it can be Telefonica, O2. These are the biggest proportion of our customers. One major change is for them that they went to be from the one-stop communication provider into somebody who's just a platform. So if you're using WeChat, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger today, you're most likely using our customer's network, but you don't care. And they get 0 cents, 0 pounds out of that. Because Facebook get the money, they just use them as a platform. But when it doesn't work, who do you call? You call them. So they get all the negatives, not all the positives. If they do not go into a more partnership mode with the Facebooks, with the Googles, with all these players. So they are in a fundamental shift from being the one-stop shop to being now in an ecosystem where they need to work with these suppliers. Or they need to recognize the fact if they don't do, there will be just a bit pipe that supplies just the connectivity, which is not something you can generate a lot of money on. The second key shift is that they used to provide a lot of unique offering. They used to have a very strong customer buy-in. Basically, years ago, you trusted a mobile operator at the same level as you trust a bank. So where the bank would put your stuff in the safe and they'll hand you the key, our customers would hand you a SIM card. It's not like that anymore. When I hire new people, I'm in human resources, they come with a little code, put me onto your platform, I don't care, I take my number. Who's that? I don't care. I mean, just want to use that. So that's not uniqueness. And when I look into the different offering of mobile operators, also in UK, it's not really differentiating anymore. You pay a little bit more for more data, faster data, but it's kind of the same thing. I get more text messages than I need. I get a couple of hours of voice, which I don't use anyway. So I go like, what is the big difference? And that's one of the biggest challenges they have. They have not differentiated themselves because they went for the mode of all in at a fixed price. And the third thing is really that you look into telecommunications, it was a growing market. We were putting up masts around the world, we were spreading the coverage, all of a sudden you can move around with your phone, and it was a very profitable, regulated business. Into an area where the latest economic intelligence reports now show that for every 100 people in the 60 key markets we are in, there are 113 devices, so they're not going to sell more of that. And the average revenue per user from our customers is set to decline by 2.5%. If you're in the fixed line business, it's even 11%. So it doesn't look good for our customers. Or you can say, Porter would say, extreme efficiency, extreme scalability, you just need to set up a very lean operations, then you can also be successful. And it may be true, if not for 5G. The next technology wave is 5G, which will give a lot of fast network. It's going to give a lot of extra signal in the customer network. It's going to give ultra-low latency, less than 1 millisecond, which if you're not in technology business, that means that you can sit in a hospital in London and you can operate via a robot on somebody in Vietnam to provide much better health care. And you can put somebody into a 5G ambulance, and immediately you start to do all the analytics while they're on the way to the hospital, rather than doing when you arrive there. And many, many other things going on. So you can see the dilemma of our customers. On one side, they can be ultra efficient, and the other side, there's a technology wave and they need massively to invest. Now, from a challenger perspective, I think this is a great opportunity. You can really do something for these guys because they are not in a very nice spot. So I started to look at this when I took over this job as NATO Director for Sales in Europe. And I realized this. Our customers are maybe putting us through e-auctions, RFQs, they scrutinize us, but they're really not always knowing which questions to ask. And they don't know what answers. So it's a little bit of a defensive play. And once I started to talk to our salespeople, I realized this is what's going on here. These guys are just trying to pass on the buck to us as a supplier. And if we accept that, I go 4 slides back, we'll be exactly in the same situation. And I don't think Nokia want to go into that area. But you cannot change that just by doing things differently. If you want to go into this new world, you have to change your behaviors. And the biggest mindset shift I'm implementing for our sales in Europe is to go from being the technical advisor who knows everything and love to sell to the chief technical officer and convince procurement to get at a good price, to being somebody who helps the whole executive committee drive, expand, and build a sustainable business. That is the mindset shift, and it's very, very simple. But it took me quite a while to articulate that. Once you get this right, you can do a lot of things around it. But you've got to be clear about what is the mindset shift you want to see happening. Do you think this is easy for our salespeople, going from left to right? No, it doesn't look like that. It's not. It's quite a journey. And I'm happy to see and tell you how Challenger and how we use Challenger to actually put us on that journey. But first, I want to show you one framework that I'm using. And I come back to that because this is the way I'm thinking about driving behavior change. I think you need to do 4 different things, or at least one of them at a time, to drive a change in behavior. One is to do certain things that helps me get a conviction and understanding. Cynic would say, help me understand the why. And for us, it's the why of the new world. Then I may change my behavior. If I do certain things that develops my skills, my talents in my organization, if I hire right, I may change my behaviors. And particularly if you help me to get into this new world, of course I'm going to go with you on that journey. But if you just put pressure on me, it ain't going to work. Leaders as role models is another key thing for me. Leaders in role models are important because during change, people get a little bit into this fight or flight mode. And leaders as role models can really help you get the true north and articulate very clearly which way we are going. So leaders role modeling is critically important. Otherwise, people say, oh, he's doing like that? Okay, I'm not going to go over there. And the 4th one is, are you reinforcing with your formal mechanism where you want to go? So if I'm doing challenge and behavior change here, but as a salesperson, I need to do certain things to enter into my single CRM. I need to do certain things to get things approval. When I have deal approval calls, I'm in the old mode. That doesn't work. And if you really want to drive behavior change, anything you do, at least you touch on 2 of these domains. This is the experience I have. And I'm going to come back to a little bit how that model has been in the back of my mind when I took people on the transformation around the challenger mindset in Europe. Let's get crack on. I'll talk a little bit more about the journey we are on. And the first key thing is really to understand where you are. I needed to understand the issue. Very often we believe, yeah, that looks good, let's try it out and do it. But there's an art in really, really going slow here. So when I took over this job, I tried to understand why do we not have salesmanship in the best sense of the word, which is like a second-hand car dealership in US. How do these guys work really? And I set up some circles here, you can see them behind me, where I took my best salespeople into workshops. They had good cases they won in a unique way. Then they talked to other salespeople, and then the other salespeople solved the cases, really. And then the other guys came back and said, okay, this is what actually did happen. And then we synchronized and aligned, and we did some coaching for development. And out of those circular discussions, I distilled what is the strategy, what are the key things you need to consider, and what are the behaviors. So I started to build up what does good behaviors look like. And you can see here on the box below, these are the things that I distilled out of all these workshops. And it has a lot to do with Challenger. It was about understanding the customer and the market. It was about understanding and working well with stakeholders. It was about working with the whole entire team and inspire them. So dealing with internal complexity rather than just putting yourself into the silo. And having understood all of that and really understood what is the key issue, then I could feel comfortable getting into the journey of implementing another way of thinking. And I had 3 things to brand my program. So when you say salesmanship, do you think I picked option 1, 2, or 3? So raise your hand if you think option 1 is a good picture for my program. Anybody think that's good for salesmanship? Raise your hand. Nobody thinks that? What about option 2? The funnel leading to the money, the person? Yeah, nobody? Option 3, the guy runs there. Anybody raise their hands? At least a couple? Yeah? Well, that's also what we thought. I made a Yammer poll, and it's 73% of the people did that. So why is that important? I think it's important in an early stage of a transformation to give it a brand, to give it an identity. And this become what I call challenge to win in custom operations in Europe. And whenever people see that brand, in everything we do, they can recognize that. They can recognize they're in a journey. They can recognize it's not easy, but there's money behind the next mountain. And it's quite important to put in a branding and identity around these initiatives. Otherwise, it can just be another thing I'm doing. And we work very virtually in Nokia, so this becomes even more important as a lighthouse. This is now the mode we are in. And there's a little bit this thing, what kind of conversations are we having? And once you put that in, people say like, okay, now we talk challenger. Now we're in a challenger journey. So we did that. Then, how do you contain the issue? My point is, you have to start small and you have to keep growing. Rather than lining everything up and aligning everybody, now we know from today's presentation in the morning that that's also going to take quite a while. I felt it's important to start small, keep going, and then accelerate. And it started by containing the issue. I did that by focusing on 3 key things. The first thing I did was to align on a vision on Challenger to get the executive buy-in for a small circle of executives. The guys who are concerned, the guys who could get on a journey, so we can start the movement of somebody who really cares about Challenger. And my vision was not about capability, the better future, salespeople, we can save on cost if we not have to lay them off and hire new people, because I know these guys didn't care. I said to them, your biggest challenge is always we have too few pre-sales guys. Can we shorten the sales cycle? We got more time to do more deals. And we have an issue about profitability. We go down the drain with the customers. So this potentially will get us more sustainable business with the customer and a better margin. And they say like, oh, we want to have that. So speaking the language of the customer, which is quite a thing for somebody from HR, really made the first mark. The second thing is to do challenge early on. So I realized all the movements in my organization, all the hires, all the job changes, if I could get a little bit of a challenger notch to anything I did, I would immediately start to build that early on. So I started doing challenger assessments for all new hires. I started to do challenger behavior-based interviewing with all the HR teams in countries where you need to go through Works Council to get it done. Anybody does business in France and Germany, it's not easy, but you can always do a behavior-based interviewing, and I could do the same thing. So I use this as a very important way, A, to say, we're serious about Challenger. Challenger is about your career, so you better get on with that. Secondly, I educated the HR organization to understand what does Challenger mean in terms of skills, behaviors, and people's personal development. And the third thing I did was to build up capability in sales operations and in sales capability. And I used this Sales Leadership Council. I think that was at the CB at that point in time. And it's really powerful because all of a sudden the sales operations guys started to have some external benchmark. They started to have some tools. They could speak another language. They could add much more value to the business. And before that, we had an online catalog with our sales capability team, and I took them with me on this journey. So now they are partner on this journey, and they're co-creating a lot of stuff together with me. So getting people on a journey from various aspects, whether you say challenge as a behavior, and the challenge as things that you scan for in recruitment, or you take your people on your journey with you because you equip them with some knowledge, some insights from platforms, or you get the vision from the leaders aligned to what's important for them, this is a very important starting point. I think it's important to get the little wheel turning first. The second thing is then to really get it going. So where do you start? You start here, you start with the biggest challenges, you start with everybody, you go like that. The approach I took was a little bit from the sailing industry. And I asked myself the question, on a big super tanker, because Nokia has a little bit of a super tanker at times, how do you turn the rudder? I took the water away here. You can see it's several meters high. So the question is, how do you turn the rudder on a big ship? Anybody knows? Yeah? You don't just push a button. You use the trim tab. So the very end of the rudder, there's a little trim tab. You turn that one. Water starts to flow differently around the rudder. It helps to push it, and then you can move it from this ship. So as Nokia is a good picture of a supertanker, you need to understand who's your trim tab. For me, the trim tab are the sales leaders. So I massively went into the line managers of the sales team, and I want to build one common language across that population, and those were my trim tabs across the organization. And the first thing I said was, all cases are challenger cases. Because I don't want that we say, oh, we have a challenger case flagged here in the CRM system, but then we're doing the real stuff Monday to Thursday. I said, it's challenger cases from now on. And people said, okay, then we have to learn. So it's a massive thing how you set the expectations and get people on the journey by doing a few simple things. I realize it's new to people. They're the technical advisors, and these are the people who grew up to be my sales leaders. So I wanted to build the confidence in that sales leadership level, because if you don't do that, you create a bit of a threat response. And we don't react very well when we're in a threat situation. So you have to install the confidence, create the security to get people on the journey. People only walk so far down the line with you if you're threatening them. And I felt giving them confidence was the best I could do. So I over-invested in our sales leaders. First, we took them through this challenge yourself, so they really in the 2-day workshop understood what does it really mean. We did all of these workshops face-to-face, and we always had leadership team members present there. We then sent them back to do these challenger cases, and then we did a bottom-up diagnostic from all the people reporting to them. So how well are these guys coaching for Challenger? How well are they doing sales coaching? And some months after, we took them back and we looked at the diagnostics together with them, and we realized, A, these guys are often the super salespersons. They then coach on skills, and they don't coach on early pipeline creation. Is it new? No, because we took the best guys and promoted them to sales leaders. So I just had a data point to prove that. So we took them through a 2 days coach for Challenger workshop, where they exactly got role modeling, they got exercises to help them shift into that mode. And as we had done a big acquisition, we also needed to understand, do they understand the whole portfolio? Because some of these guys were from Nokia, some of them from Alcatel-Lucent, and if you don't know the whole portfolio, I mean, it's very hard to build a credible insights down the line. So we did an assessment of that, and we did a recruitment assessment of them so they could understood across all the 5 domains what's my challenger profile. We did them through the coaching, how can you be more of a challenger. So after that work, they really felt confidence. A lot of work, a lot of support for the organization, but we make it a positive journey, we make it a learning journey. By saying early on, all cases are challenger, let's help you to develop on that. So how you position that in an organization, you can make it quite positive, and people will go on you on that journey. At that point, I then shifted into having a more active executive sponsorship. I mean, the guys who funded, they get the vision, but to create a more active, wider executive sponsorship, I started really to highlight all the win calls. How are we winning with Challenger? What's the cases we're winning? What are the aspects of Challenger? To anchor the key elements of the programs into how we're winning new business. And constantly doing update, oh, now we won another one. Now we know the one and on. So you keep bus going. So these guys, every time they turn a quarter, it becomes a little bit more silent in the corner office. They realize, oh, these guys are helping me to win new and better business. And this is how we got it going. But I must realize it's only a starting point. How do you sustain the transformation? It's a little bit like the whole supertanker. Even if you switch off the engine, it will go for some miles, but then it stops. When you start it again, it's quite an effort. So although I'm a great believer in starting small, I think you should not underestimate the importance of keep the momentum going and keep building that to a bigger thing. Otherwise, you risk that it's become just a pilot, growth incubation, and the business goes like that. There's a big power in that supertanker. And how do we change the behaviors? There are many ways to do that. Let me share how we are doing it. We are taking now, under the sales leaders, we take account team by account team that supports the same customers. And we take them through the journey about awareness. Then they do the transformation on a workshop. And then they have the application phase that has a very long last. Why are we doing it like that? Because changing behaviors takes time, and creating new neural pathways in the brain takes repetitions. That's what I tell my son. Thomas, you have to study, break, study, break, then you will remember. Because this is how it works. And by creating a challenger change journey for salespeople, this is a very powerful way to make sure that things really start to sit with them. And focusing around one customer, you can easily demonstrate what has been the impact. So we do that. We also then activated the support network. So when we're going to do a customer team, we have developed a small 1-hour virtual nimble what's challenge all about, what these guys are going through, that we can pull off and for the support network. So if I'm doing Deutsche Telekom in Germany, I talk to the supply chain guys around that team, the HR guys, the finance guys. Everybody get to know a little bit about what they're going around. So that barrier, the old and the new world, you lower that. And just a very simple way to make sure that some people are on a journey, but some people are cheerleading these guys on the journey, and you got to make sure they understand a little bit about this as well. We also activated the Nokia coaching pools. So where we want leaders to be sales coaches, we have a big pool of coaches that can help people on their own personal development, and we could activate that pool for people and just connecting them. So an account manager or a customer team head, which is a sales leader for us, anybody can activate a coach to say, this is what I want to get out of challenging myself, and here's where I'm struggling. And having that service available for anybody who wanted that was tremendously important for people to feel, wow, you support me on this journey, which creates a positive response to the change that helps people to get on the journey. Because the last thing you want to see is that I don't feel the love of the company. So that was critically important. Another important element is also to create a buzz around this and sustain it, which for me is create the culture. And one very important way of creating culture is to do something, this is how we do it around here. So I've been focusing on building a very strong community. We use Yammer in Nokia, so we have an exclusive Yammer group for people who are in here. And making it close groups help us foster open communication. So inside these walls, we can discuss very openly about what's challenges for us, what are the things we're going through, and new aspects and new things that comes in here. And we have a regular way where we're posting on the Yammer group. And even the Challenger team are posting as well. So we create the community around I'm on a Challenger journey, rather than here's an HR function response, here's a marketing response. We're all in this together. And we have monthly community calls just to take the tone, see where are people going, what do we hear? Because I don't know how it's with you guys in social media, but we only get part of the things on the Yammer groups. So the community calls helps us with another channel to listen to what's really going on. It all creates a buzz around it, and it also helps us to create the culture that this is something we do around here, which reinforces when people get a little bit lost in their own personal challenger journey. And the last one we're doing now is deepening the insights. We talked this morning about insight, how important it is, but we are now focusing on the messaging creation. And the reasons why we do this late in the process is that I feel it's quite an important and complicated tool to use, at least for my salespeople. So I wanted to enable them on that whole journey, and then we can talk about messaging. And the benefit of that is that we are now doing messaging around one of our key challenges. If you remember the dilemma of our customers, we do that on 5G end-to-end, because this is where we will have a massive business impact over the next coming years. So I think how you're positioning messaging and how you help people build up their capabilities, and when they're ready to speak that language, then you enable them with these different things, has been a key part in how we're doing it. I just want to bring it up because I heard some other speakers that bring it up early on, but at least from the Nokia perspective, we did it the other way around. is one stop to work. I want to sum it up like that. I think it's important for my journey to outline that it's business. So you're going to really understand where you are before you get on a journey. I think you need to create a continuous impact, small steps that always shows and demonstrate an impact, so you don't get branded as yet another HR program or yet another training. You have to demonstrate business impact all the time. I think it's also culture, and you have to find leaders as role models because they amplify the cultures tremendously. And activating and enabling leaders to be those role models, you can create a very strong culture. And by growing a community, that kind of reinforces that as well. And culture, as you may know, eat strategy for breakfast. So this is very important. And my third learning is that it's a journey. So don't just think that it's something you can just roll out and then it's going to be okay. By setting it up in an agile way, and I want to give some credit to the Challenger team here, the way you work together with whoever you take on that journey, you can co-create stuff, you can learn, you can reflect, and you can make it stronger and stronger and stronger. And if you do that, you may start small, but then you see it accelerating as you get into the impact on your business. And you also need to help balancing the vision with the next step. So you always do something that's meaningful, not for Peter in the program, not for capability development, not for the executive team, but for the account managers in his next sales conversation. Because then it becomes relevant every time. So when we're doing that and when we're continuing our journey, I can see a little bit of that imagination become reality for our ambition to help our customers solve some of their biggest challenges and problems for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
You need this?
Am I on? Yes, thank you. We've got some time for some Q&A. Peter, just want to say thank you on behalf of our team for coming and sharing your story with us. Even me in account management role, it's always fascinating to see the detail through which you apply your Challenger rollout, so we're incredibly grateful. To start the ball rolling on the Q&A, I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. We thought we might come with some pre-prepared questions that are reflective of a lot of the questions that come up from our clients or our prospective customers as they go through a process of learning how Challenger could work for their organization. And so if it's okay with you, Peter, the first question would be, if Peter 2018 could go back and have a conversation with Peter 2015,
yes.
Would you advise him to do anything differently in terms of your rollout?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think I argued that you got to start small and then you have to accelerate that. I think I spent probably a little bit too much time understanding the as is. I think you could be more nimble. I realized it was more about Peter understanding it. So if I've been a bit more business oriented, I could move faster into execution. So I would do that faster. And now I know messaging and insights, I would probably put that in a little bit earlier. I think we're a little bit too scared of that. So I would definitely do these two things differently. Many things I would do the same way. I believe in leaders. I believe in activating a layer, and then you execute the layer below. Yeah.
Awesome. And question number 2, one of the things that I found basically fascinating about Nokia's decision to actually start with this is that during the time of our commercial process, Nokia were integrating a company that was a $16.6 billion acquisition and adding about 51,000 people to their organization. And as somebody in the commercial team, you can often see that change is incredibly prohibitive to getting started with anything like this, particularly making more investments, be that a CRM implementation or a merger or an acquisition. So one of the things I'd love to hear more about, Peter, is integrating Alcatel-Lucent was a huge thing. In hindsight, how did that impact your decision to get started, and what did you learn from the process?
A great question, actually. And one thing I learned was that when we bought Alcatel-Lucent, we had very different ways of selling. And Challenger helped us tremendously in actually aligning on that approach. So Challenger, in a way, has been our own little cultural integration in terms of expectation for sales. So we're actually knitting the sales teams together, which actually quite practically has enabled us to move resources across sales teams much more fluently, which has a huge impact on, the profitability on the account. But it's also a cultural journey, so that has helped tremendously as well. And it's kind of we can all agree on the customer's challenges, and then we just go in the same way. So in a way, it helped us accelerate the integration in sales. And we can see that on our profitability on each account it actually gone much better than we had in the business case.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And actually one question on that, because I know it's something we didn't cover and it's something that we get asked all the time. What were some of the results that you were able to see from the program?
Yeah, we do not yet have enough data to see did we shorten the sales cycle, because we simply need to have more data in there. But we can see a tremendous improvement in profitability of business we win with Challenger. And we've seen surprisingly a big uptick in business we win without an RFQ, where we go to the customer and say, you will have that challenge, did you know? And then we actually win without an RFQ, which is not very common, but it's very profitable. And the customer actually come back and say, oh, thank you very much. You helped me solve a business problem without even going to the procurement process. So these are some very specific things. I would say, without disclosing the number, we have made a double-digit million euros new business for this. I think it's not too much to say. So it's very good for us.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
We have some time for your questions. One of my colleagues has a microphone in hand, so can transport it to you.
Yeah.
Hi there. You mentioned the Sales Leadership Council.
Yeah.
Which functions did you have represented on that, and how did the Sales Leadership Council act in this process as part of the journey?
Yeah. Thanks, a wonderful question. So I took a cross-functional approach to that. So we had 29 licenses, and I had some executives in sales in Europe. I had sales operations quite a lot. I had sales capability. I myself from HR and some other people. But I also included in the same functions that mirrored into the global sales organization for Nokia. So we had that going on multiple layers, because I felt it was important for us to demonstrate the value out of this, because we don't believe so much in councils. We've been burned a couple of times. I wanted to show the power of this. What really was important for us was, you can go to the website, you can check things out, but we have an advisory that comes out and say, hey, what are the challenges you're having? And we can discuss that, and they come up with, okay, think about this, look at this, and having all these advisory sessions with us. And that was really powerful, because they actually came to us and say, what is the problems you want to have solved? And then we could help us guiding the resources towards that. That was really the power of that.
Thanks, Peter. One of the challenges we are struggling with is that some of our frontline sales staff are not making the journey. Did you encounter that, and what did you do about those that seem to be being left behind?
I didn't quite get, they don't go on the journey, or they will not go on the journey?
They are willing, but not necessarily able. What do you do about those?
Frontline salespeople. One thing is, because we built a strong layer with the sales leaders, it becomes the talks in the sales team meeting. So you kind of help them to get on the journey, because this is a new talk of the town. Another point we're doing is we enable them. So you take a development approach to this, so you make sure it becomes positive for them. I have not yet, from that approach, met somebody who says, like, I don't believe in this. Because we also back that up with all the hardcore data that Challenger actually has. So I haven't yet met that, but I think it's fair to come back and challenge people on, from a coaching perspective, to say, well, okay, so what's good about the world you're not going to leave? And very often you see these people are not really meeting their sales targets. So you can play on many things of what makes them successful. I'm more into the positive psychology of showing what is the cost of not moving. Yeah. But we haven't met a lot of those guys yet. Maybe because Nokia is always transforming, so people are kind of used to it. We're always on the move. Great. But great concern, yeah. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes left of the time, I believe. So there's some other sessions, I think, still going on. So if we can ask you to, if you need to leave, do so really stealthily. And if you can settle here in the interim till the minute, that would also be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, if you have questions that come up between now and then, Peter or myself, if helpful, will be available during the breaks, and also Peter's going to be joining us later for the broader Q&A where you can interrogate all of our speakers. Yep, on the hour there are on the 20 minutes there'll be some drinks in the foyer as well. So thank you again, Peter.
Thank you much. Thanks.